This episode of the Critical Careers Podcast is sponsored by CBRE. Hi, I'm Joyce Wady. Welcome to the Critical Careers Podcast. On today's show, I welcome Lauren Wendon from CBRE. Lauren and I talk about why health and safety are such important components of data center operations. And when data centers have to be running 24/7, how do we protect the people who make that possible? Enjoy the show. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about, how did you come to find yourself in the data center industry?
Yeah, of course. So I think probably like most women, or like most people in general, I never kind of envisaged that I would have a career in the data center industry, let alone as a sort of health and safety professional in that industry as well. And I think maybe if you had asked me when I was much younger, what I expected to be or what I wanted to be, it would have been something around the lines of a ballerina.
Oh, nice.
Or maybe a vet or something like that. But then I think when I was in school, I actually had this wonderful German teacher. And she absolutely, and that lesson absolutely sort of influenced my decision to go to university and study languages.
Oh, okay.
So I studied German, which was great. I had an amazing year abroad, got to live in Hamburg, so I don't regret any of those experiences. So I went off to university, I did that, but I think with that sort of degree, when I graduated, I still didn't really have like a clear direction or career path. But what I did absolutely know, my ultimate goal was to move to London. So I grew up in Swansea in southwest Wales, which is incidentally now an area of great investment actually in terms of the data center industry. But lots of my friends, my now husband, Tom, were all in London after university.
Sure.
And I was desperate to go there. Because of that, I was applying to all sorts of roles across different industries, professions. I had no idea what I wanted. And I think really I took the first thing I was offered. And that was as a health, safety and compliance administrator in a property and facilities management company. I had no idea what that really meant, but it was in Knightsbridge. I moved to London. I was like living my dream.
It ticked all the boxes you needed it to tick at that moment in time.
It absolutely did.
Yeah.
But little did I know that really is what propelled my whole career. So in that role, they were like a relatively small company. And they had recently attained their ISO accreditation. So they were implementing their management system. And I was there to support an existing team and kind of be like the administrator behind that. They had an external health and safety consultant who used to come in occasionally and sort of support and was like the main sort of competent person, I suppose, on site. And they asked if I would like to maybe do the NEBOSH General Certificate. And that is kind of like, I would say, the foundation level qualification for someone in the health and safety profession.
Okay.
And at that point, I was like, I'll take anything. I'll do any training. Sure. And I did it. I'm like a bit of a stressor. So I panicked about it. I don't know this stuff, but obviously revised, worked hard, and somehow got a distinction. So I was like, oh, okay, this is all right. And then when I finished that, they said, would you be interested in doing the diploma? So that's like the next step up. It's more like a degree level qualification. And again, I was like, absolutely. Like they funded it for me. So I did that. It was much harder, but we got through it. And then I think after that, I was like, well, this is it then. I guess I'm in health and safety. So the next few years, I moved around in several different companies and different industries. So I'd done the property and facilities management. I moved into infrastructure and engineering. I worked in transport.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. And
so you've touched a lot of critical infrastructure throughout your career.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
So that's when I then landed, I suppose, at my dream role at CBRE, which is where I am at the moment. However, it still wasn't quite in data centers. I was working as QHSE, so Quality, Health, Safety and Environment Lead on a large telco account. I did that for 2 years. And then actually a wonderful colleague saw the QHSE director role in the data center part of the business come up and was like, oh, you should go for this. And I think that is just like a real example of like women empowering women. She saw it, she thought of me and she was like, go for it. And I sort of ummed and ahed because I was like, well, I don't know anything about data centers. I don't think I'm a credible candidate. And I almost didn't go for it. But then I kind of thought, well, I've started researching the role a little bit more and reading about it and actually thinking like, wow, this seems like quite an exciting industry,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
And yes, I don't really know about it, but like this seems like something I want to be part of. Like the growth, the opportunities. So I did go for the interview, and I remember just feeling completely intimidated. I was in the room with the managing director for the data center UK business for CBRE, who is now my wonderful boss, and he's brilliant. Our technical director, and the global QHSE director. And I did feel completely out of my comfort zone. I was like, I don't know anything about tech.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about data centers other than like the basic research that I'd done. But I came out of that and like reeling off their passion. And I was like, I really want this job now. And I'd gone in there being like, oh, I'm not sure. And I came away and I was like, I'll be devastated if I don't get it. And thankfully,
You did.
I did get it. And yeah, that is where I am now.
Yeah. The thing I love listening to your story is you've shared so many commonalities that I've heard from the women that I interviewed for the Critical Careers book about just, that whether you intended to or not, that you have touched other elements of
Yeah.
critical infrastructure. And so therefore, like, this is a natural progression in the data center industry in a way,
Yes.
and it's one may not necessarily lead to the other, but they all build nicely upon each other. And also the fact that, there's so many of us that do get that, oh, I don't meet every qualification, so therefore I'm not going to put myself forward for something.
Yeah.
And that's, it's something I think that's unique to women, but not in a great way. I think we do need to just
Absolutely.
have more confidence in ourselves. So I
Yeah.
love the fact that, you overcame that and you still put yourself forward to it and found something that you really enjoy.
Absolutely. And I think like what I have realized since, being successful and getting the role and working in industry is that you don't have to know all of the answers.
No,
You're
right.
not expected to be an expert.
Right.
And actually, I think one of the key things that I have learned is, yeah, if I don't know the answer, there are people I can go to. And I think it is the fact that we have like such a diverse range of skills within our teams. We've got technical people, we've got people, we've got
Yeah.
marketing
Yeah.
people, we've got safety people, project people. No single person is going to have all of the answers. And that's why we have those experts.
Absolutely. And everybody comes together and recognizes that and realizes
Yeah.
that. And we all depend on each other for
Exactly.
everybody's individual expertise, which is
There's
great.
Combined strengths and
Absolutely.
collaboration
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
continuously like learning.
Yes, absolutely. So what was it about health and safety that really clicked for you as a career?
I think when I first started on the journey, I have to admit that, I didn't necessarily think that safety was particularly cool. And I think there is very much or there was a little bit of like a stigma or a stereotype of, your sort of health and safety person walking around with a checklist.
Sure.
And I've soon realized, and I think, the perception of it is changing everywhere, that, it's a role where actually you can have so much fulfillment because you truly are making a difference.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, there really is nothing more important than making sure our people, when they finish their shifts, go home safe and well to their families.
Yes, absolutely.
So fundamentally, that's what I love about it. And I think what has changed a little bit is I do think data centers are really cool. So in fact, like safety is cool, and safety in data centers is really cool to me. And I think another thing really is that as a person, I would say I am pretty risk averse. This is a really sort of regulated sector. That there's so much legislation, guidance, codes of practice that we have to follow. And I don't know if you're familiar with disc profiles. When
No,
you do
not really,
your
yeah.
personality profiles,
Okay.
I always come up as like a high C, which is basically like I'm very compliant. I'm a rule follower. I'm not going to break the rules. So it kind of actually fits in perfectly with my personality
Sure.
type. I think I have actually found my niche in safety in data centers.
That's good. I'm laughing because I feel like I'm a fellow rule follower. So I hadn't thought about it from that perspective, but it absolutely makes sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So what does, quality, health, and safety look like in a 24/7 environment like data centers are?
As I said, like health and safety is very regulated. We have the legislation, we have the guidance, we have that sort of framework that we need to operate in. And we have those external assurance programs in place as well. So we have our ISO accreditation, we're carrying out internal and external audits, all of those things that, help to ensure a safe working environment. And I think everyone is kind of familiar with the concept of risk assessment and hazard identification in whatever sector you work in. But I think what's different about the data center industry is that this is 24/7. There is very little downtime. And these are critical environments. So they are, they can be very high pressured places to work.
Yeah.
I think most people in the data center industry are familiar with the concept of the 5 nines, which is
Yes.
the 99.999% uptime. And that's a kind of standard benchmark that we use for mission critical systems where, we need continuous service. They can't go down. So there is no downtime per se in a
Right.
data center. And that can obviously have a significant impact on the health, safety, and well-being of our people. So we have continental shift workers working, night shifts in potentially high pressured environments. And this is where the human factors really play a significant role. And we have to take these human factors into consideration when we're building our risk frameworks. So it's estimated that I think around 80% of all accidents happen because of human error, or the acts or omissions of people at work. And further to that, I think it's around like 40% of major outages that have been suffered by data centers
Right.
are somewhat attributed again to human error.
Yeah, and you do see that too. Like I know, like hearing like in cybersecurity, that it is the human element that is usually what triggers incidents. So I think that that makes perfect sense that that would be the same case in the data center industry as well. So has your approach changed at all? Like from when you first came into the industry, are there things that best practices that have been developed, or things that you've kind of discovered along the way that helps in either mitigating those human factors or in creating a different environment that enables the team and to do what it needs to do for that 24/7 mission critical infrastructure?
Yeah, I think something I've absolutely learned since working in the data center industry is just that significant role that the human factors play in relation to risk management.
Yeah.
And, if we just take a really simple example, so if we look at what human factors actually means, it's the environmental surroundings, it's the human side and the individual characteristics, and the job factors that kind of influence someone's behavior at work that might contribute to the likelihood of an incident occurring.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a very simple example, if we take maybe one of our colleagues who is coming to work, maybe they've just had a baby at home, but they're absolutely exhausted. They've had a terrible night's sleep. That is obviously going to affect their ability to perform
Sure.
activities at work. So that's your kind of individual characteristic. But then they might be in an environment which is noisy or poorly lit. And those are your sort of environmental factors.
Okay.
So all of those things are going to significantly impact the well-being of that employee
Yeah.
and increase potentially the likelihood of an incident occurring, whether that's safety or operational resilience being affected.
Yeah.
And I think since coming into the industry and working in data centers, that's something that's absolutely sort of changed. And like really we can have all of the risk assessments, we can have everyone trained and competent on paper. You must factor in to your risk arrangements, your risk framework, the really significant impact that those human factors can have.
Sure. And in an industry that's growing so dramatically right now. And like you said, there is a skills shortage that goes with it. Like there's a lot of external pressures in an already stressful environment, all kind of coming together at the same time.
Absolutely, yeah.
What are the ways that you believe that you can start to kind of have an influence within the organization when there are so many external pressures kind of coming together?
Of course, yeah. So something we do really well in CBRE is we have a program called Human Factors Awareness Training. We mandate that for all employees, so not just operational workers. Everyone in our business does that when they start working in our industry. And that's a bespoke course that we've designed around the data centers. And I think it is really just raising that awareness, getting people to think about, the things that might be affecting them. So that the external pressures, maybe family,
Sure.
it could be anything, it could be external, internal. It can be the pressures at work. It can be time constraints. Just thinking about those and making sure that our colleagues, we're really trying to, I think it's really important in safety to create that culture where people are empowered to speak up. And if they feel like something's not right or it's not safe, then they feel like they are able to stop work, challenge, and have that authority. And I think without any blame or anything like that. So not only human factors training, but there's also things that we could be doing in terms of safety by design. So there may be some human error that we can eliminate through the design of the data centers. So there's, engineering controls that we can make, but also making sure that our systems and processes support our colleagues in keeping them safe in the workplace.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. So, you've mentioned like kind of what people bring with them from home, which we all do because we're all human, and we're not robots that come into the office and just do our work. How have you found it in balancing, personal responsibilities, whether it's, motherhood or, caregiving responsibilities? How do you balance that for yourself?
Well, speaking from my own personal experience, I think anyone working full time with a young family, that is a real challenge. And I do have 2 young daughters, and they are 8 and 6 on Sunday.
Ah,
So I'm in the midst of planning a soft play party at the moment for 20 children. And, it is hard finding that balance. And I think when I first returned to work after having my second daughter, I was lucky enough to have a year off maternity leave. But then that return to work was really tricky.
yeah,
I wanted to go back to work, but I really struggled with the need to sort of try and make a good impression and show up and not have to leave early.
right,
But then juggling the guilt and the mental, the motherhood load of that as well. And I think, over time, we've kind of found our routine and we found our rhythm. And I'm proud to work now. And I think hopefully I'm a good role model to my daughters. Um, but, it is hard. And that's why we do need to support women, but also families, and make that possible, because we don't want to put people off coming to work in
no,
industry.
right,
And I think, I'm really fortunate. I work for an organization, CBRE, who they have a number of sort of programs and initiatives in place to help women, to support us, being able to work and have families. And as an example, I think some of the things that have helped me is we have a really enhanced program for returning to work where you can have coaching or a mentor. So there is support available.
yeah,
And just things like, joining networks for women in engineering, or, celebrating International Women's Day, which is all things that we can all do. And I think it just raises awareness. And I think what I found is great is just the solidarity.
yeah,
I'm not in
absolutely.
this alone.
No, definitely not.
Most of us these days, may have to work, or we want to work. So it is kind of, I think we just need to make sure that everyone is aware of the support and the help out there.
Yeah,
And I think for me, as well, from a personal perspective, it is really important just to set those boundaries. And, if I am on annual leave with my family, or it is late at night, making sure that I'm not checking my phone and I am in the moment with them.
yeah, and that is such a hard personal thing for so many people to do, but it is
Yeah,
so important
it
because
is.
someone told me once early in my career that the company's not going to set the boundary for you. You have to do that. And I don't think I always put it into practice well, but it absolutely has stuck with me. So it is really important.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I would say that would have absolutely helped, though, when I had 2 at nursery, something around childcare costs, because, not only are you kind of stressed about, leaving the children to go and have a job,
Yeah.
you're also paying for it.
Yeah.
And I think that just kind of closes the loop on the whole human factors thing. So, people might be worried about money, they might be stressed, and they're bringing all of that to work and then working in a critical environment, which is why, yeah, it's really important to me that we are, offering support and doing what we can as an industry to help.
Is there any type of flexibility that you think would help for, and it can be, like right now, my husband's the primary caregiver for his 91-year-old mother,
Oh,
so he's feeling those pressures.
yeah.
And, we as women, when we're coming back to work, with young children at home, are having those pressures. Like, what kind of flexibility could we be building in to help that?
It is really tricky. I appreciate if you're, running a 24/7 data center operation, you can't always accommodate people. But I think if we're adequately resourced and, offering flexibility makes a huge difference. I know for me personally, just being able to come in maybe 15 minutes later one day
Sure.
or leave slightly earlier so that I can go to a class assembly or I can go to a parents' evening. For me, that's made a significant difference to like my own mental health,
Yeah.
to my family, but it also makes me proactive in my job because I appreciate that. I appreciate that flexibility and it makes me want to sort of, give it back a little bit as
Yeah,
well.
sure.
So, it's not always possible. I know that we can't accommodate every request, but I think having like options available and recognizing that in the modern day, people they do have families, they are working, there is a juggle, and I guess that's one of the positive things that did come out of COVID
Yeah.
is that, we are able to work from home
Yeah.
a lot more flexibly now. I know it is a little bit different in data centers because we obviously need people there.
Yeah.
But things like that, I think, are things that we need to explore more to help.
Well, and I think also just having conversations like this actually
Yeah.
makes a big difference too, because it brings it out in the open. You understand someone could be listening today going, you know what, that really resonates with me, or I wish I was in an environment that was as supportive, as Lauren's describing. Maybe I'll look at a different industry, maybe I'll look at the data center industry, or maybe I'll look at CBRE, or, like I think just having these conversations makes such a big difference in that.
100%. So, reading your amazing book and seeing that there are so many other women in the industry, like this is working for and we are making it work. I think it is about sort of showcasing that because, not everyone working in the data center industry is a technician
Right.
who is in the data center, right? We
Right.
have people in safety, people in human resources, projects, marketing, and these roles can be really flexible and you can work from home. And I think for me, like I spend a lot of my time in Slough, but I don't have to arrive there at 9 o'clock. I can
Right.
go and do site visits. But that
Yeah,
can be at
because
10
the
o'clock.
traffic on the M25 going into
Yeah.
in the morning is a nightmare. So
Exactly.
you really
So
want to
actually
avoid
it's
that.
sensible. There's definitely ways we can make it work. And I think exactly what you said. Things like this podcast, things like the book, social media, it just helps like share that message that we're all dealing with the same challenges and there are things we can do collectively to make it better.
And it's like you said too about, the support networks that exist. There are so many different women's groups in the
Yeah.
industry. And this is one of those things that women, share much more universally. I mean, not all women, but
Yeah.
it is one of those, issues that we all share. And whether it's because of, responsibilities with your children or responsibilities for something else in your life, just that ability to know that there's a group of people that you can kind of turn to, who can share their experience, who can, tell you what worked for them,
Yeah.
maybe offer ideas, like all of that makes a really big difference.
Of course. And I think that's why it's so important as well that, we do network, we do speak, and we do like mentor, especially like the younger people coming in
Yeah.
as well. And
Yeah.
that they've got that like chance to sort of ask questions and reach for support. So yeah, absolutely.
That is a really good point, because you do hear a lot about how mental health is really important for the younger generations coming into the workforce now. Is there anything that you are seeing in that regard from, is that starting to take a higher priority? Are there programs being put in place to try to address that a little bit more holistically?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm speaking on behalf of my own experience at CBRE. And one of like the key parts of my role is to, raise awareness for things like that. So it was recently Mental Health
Yeah.
Awareness Day.
Yeah.
So we always try and do initiatives and campaigns. So we'll send out a bulletin with the links to like the resources that are available, but we'll actively encourage our teams on site in the data center, like, have a conversation with your teams, get them engaged with this, ask how people are truly feeling. And of course, we do have a lot of partnerships with colleges and universities across the world. As an example, in the UK, we're a founding partner of the UTC, which is the University Technical College. So that's working really closely with, the next generation coming into hopefully the data center industry. And just recently, myself and some members of my team, we went and we delivered a health and safety workshop. And I think, yes, we look at the risks and, all of those hazards that exist in that industry, but we also focus on the health, the well-being of our employees as well, and shared with them like that sort of aspect of it.
Yeah.
We also have recently celebrated in CBRE Global Safety and Wellbeing Week.
Okay.
And part of that, we encouraged everyone to make their own pledge. So this isn't just coming from me or our managing director or the leaders in the business. It was like personal pledges from line managers and their teams. Like, what are they going to do to help support the health and well-being of themselves and others in the team?
It's a great approach because it's the ownership then, like if I'm making that pledge, that I want to see that through.
Yeah.
And so it's not a top-down approach. It is a greater sense of ownership that everyone on the team gets to have with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the culture as well, right?
Sure.
And we can influence that. People shouldn't be afraid to say, actually, I'm having a bit of a hard time at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's really important. And you just touched on something then that really resonates with me, because I think one of the challenges I had when I first started my career in health and safety was I felt responsible for it all. So, and that's a heavy burden to hold, isn't it? So
It is.
even when I, wasn't as qualified and experienced, I didn't have the experience I have now. Any sort of safety incident that happened on site, I was like, oh gosh, this reflects so badly on me. This is my fault. And I think one of the things that really has changed in my approach and my mindset is safety is everyone's. It's collective responsibility. Yes, our leadership must lead by example and contribute hugely to the culture of that. But ultimately, it's everyone's responsibility. We all have a duty of care for the health, safety, and well-being of all of those around us.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point, and I can totally relate to that. By the way,
It's
taking way too much responsibility on for myself. So
yeah, it's definitely helped me sleep at night a little bit more, and knowing that I'm not in this alone. I'm here to sort of help guide that strategy, make sure we have got programs and initiatives in place that, it's all of us. And, I have to say, where I work, but also the clients and the companies I'm working for, I see really positive engagement and culture everywhere.
Yeah.
But having the opportunity to sort of influence and shape that is what I do love about the role.
Sure. Yeah, because, it takes something that could be either a little intimidating, or maybe someone views it as, maybe a little dry or not interesting. It turns it into something that, like you said, it becomes a part of the culture. It becomes on the care that they give each other as respect out of each, for their colleagues, for the environment, for the work that they do. It is it is a very critical element to a critical industry.
Do you know what? I would say it is almost the most important thing.
So, have there been any initiatives that you've seen that have really made a difference, and what has that meant to you personally?
I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed being a part of in CBRE is we've launched a program of leadership safety walks.
Okay.
So this is getting the leadership team out to the data centers and engaging with people on the ground. Because I think it's very easy, isn't it, to sometimes sort of sit behind a desk and be like, right, you need to comply with this policy and do this, when you don't truly understand what our people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis and the environments that they're in. So we've seen a really positive impact from that. And we're getting two-way conversation.
Okay.
Trying to say, if our managing director comes to site, don't fear it. It's not an audit. It's not an inspection. It's an opportunity for you to say, actually, we're finding this really hard. And then we can do something with that, which is great.
Yeah, that's an education opportunity for them.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile for everyone. And it also demonstrates that commitment from the top as well and gives us an opportunity to lead by example. Another initiative that I've been closely involved with, and I'm really enjoying this actually. Ironically, I suppose, we're using AI a lot more.
Okay.
Thanks to data centers. And we're using a tool at the moment to transform our safety training. We might issue a 14-page technical bulletin on electrical safety. And in reality, who is going to sort of
Right.
read and understand that?
Right.
So the tool that we're using, you kind of just upload that document and it will generate a wonderful video that
Oh,
can
okay.
be condensed into 5 minutes. We can watch that as a group. It's just much more engaging, and I think it resonates so much more, and we're finding that really effective.
Sure. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, because I'm like just knowing from a marketing perspective, I mean, they say like kind of the old adage is you have to reach someone 7 different ways
Yeah,
for the message to come through.
absolutely.
So if
Yeah.
AI helps you do that in a much more engaging manner or an easier manner, I mean,
Yeah,
from a cost savings, from a, from a production quality,
of course.
it makes
And
a big difference.
I think what's pretty exciting about it, and we've had a lot of fun with it actually, you can record your own avatar.
Okay.
So I have one of myself, and I can get that avatar to say anything I want.
Yeah.
But we can also do it in multiple languages.
Yeah.
So just having that opportunity to do that and sort of create our own content in relation to safety, which can also be like specific to a certain data center. So it's not just your generic package of training that you're getting, which is great. And I think finally, I've been closely involved with the Data Center Safety Council.
Okay.
So this is a relatively like new network of health and safety professionals who want to come together, recognizing like the exponential growth in the industry. And, although we are, really regulated in terms of health and safety, there isn't that much specific to data centers.
Okay.
So this is really giving us an opportunity to sort of shape how health and safety standards are going to look in the future.
Yeah.
So looking at things like high risk activities, standardizing that, and design, safety by design, the skills shortage. These are all topics that we can all come together and benchmark, share best practice, and hopefully sort of steer the way forward of what best looks like.
Well, and we find so much in the industry that collaboration is a foundation of how the best things happen, And so and no matter what role you play, what level you are in the company, having your peers to collaborate with and brainstorm ideas and come up with new solutions to things is a phenomenal resource.
Exactly. And those health and safety standards or training, they're not just going to be for us in the data center, it'll be for our suppliers, contractors, like visitors to site. So absolutely, we should be collaborating, sharing best practice, innovating together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a really interesting conversation. I know it's definitely made me rethink
Yeah.
my perspective on what all the elements are, and it is a really human component of it. And in a time when, like you've said, it's 100% uptime is so critical. Understanding the human factor behind that is really important.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Critical Careers. A special thank you to our sponsor, CBRE, for their support in helping us share the stories of the people shaping the future of digital infrastructure. To learn more about CBRE, visit www.cbre.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, share, and follow the podcast. Thanks for listening.